India is actually paying 25%. And also, we should know that that 25% is going to go up. That 25% is going to go up because Trump is threatening even more. So what do we care about all this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Trump plans to substantially raise tariffs on imports from India because of the purchase of Russian oil in a new escalation of tension. Now, I'm not here just to report the news to you because you've heard it. We're here to really try to understand, what is going on here, because what is going on could have a big impact. And the concern, obviously, is, what are they doing? What is India doing? And what is the U.S. doing? What is going on? And this is important for you to understand because, frankly, what is the U.S. up to in this type of situation? What are they looking to do? Well, basically, the official story is this. The official story is that, you're basically helping Russia and you're causing more death. And by the way, I just want to let you know that I will have a giveaway today for 10 subscribers. I'm going to give 1 month of my Patreon. I will open up and I will allow you to join free for 1 month my Patreon channel. And my Patreon channel basically every day is about 300 posts, show you all my trades, my stock trades. You see what's going on, my view in the morning in terms of the market and things like that. So I will let you know, when what time I will do it, but not too long from now. But let's go through what's going on right now. So basically, Trump is basically telling to India that you're helping Russia and you're causing more death. Also, I will say, and these are all the items that Trump is talking about, is basically they don't care how many people die in Russia, being killed by the Russian war machine. We plan to substantially raise the tariffs. The ministry in India said, this is unjustified, this is unreasonable what you're asking for. Understand that Russia last year supplied India with 1/3 of its crude oil import. So when you're asking India, just don't stop using the oil, don't buy oil from Russia, that's a big ask. And that's what they're saying. This is unjustified, unreasonable. India has nonetheless refused to back down. They suggested that it tends to continue to buy Russian oil because political experts said that Indian Prime Minister Modi is calculating that Trump will decide that ties between the two countries are ultimately too critical. The only thing is, Trump has brought up, the story, and this is becoming a major issue right now because Trump is really comes out and say, okay, you've got to pay, you got to stop doing business with Russia. But when he says stop doing business with Russia, it's a tough one to accept, right? Because at the end of the day, they are extremely heavily reliant, right? They're very reliant on the oil. You can't just say tomorrow, stop doing it. So, and again, this is what the importance of this channel is. What's really going on in this? What is Trump? What does he want? Yeah, I know he wants them to stop buying oil because he wants to stop the work in Ukraine. But like everything else, I want you to understand what's behind the scenes, right? What is really behind the scene? What is really going on? Because the ministry in India, of course, as we talked and said, is accusing the U.S. and EU to have a double standard. You continue to trade with Russia while penalizing others. The targeting of India is unjustified and reasonable. Believe it or not, the U.S. and Europe is still kind of, in a way, indirectly, but getting oil from Russia. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget I'm going to be giving away my free Patreon, for 1 month at least, so you could see what I'm thinking about. And especially now that the market is going up and up and up, that could be of interest. So, and over the weekend, Modi vigorously defended India's right to prioritize its own economic well-being at a time of global uncertainty. And as you could see, Modi is a little. Modi has been a great friend of the U.S., but how long is that going to last? He urged Indians to boost the economy by buying and selling only homegrown products made by the sweat of an Indian. Now, this Stephen Miller, as you know from the White, accused India on Sunday of taking advantage of the U.S. on trade and financing the war to buy Russian oil. Well, they are buying Russian oil and they are financing the war, but obviously they need it. But he also said India portrays itself as one of our closest friends, but they don't accept our products. And they impose massive tariffs on us. I'm not so sure about that part of the tariffs because I was checking, in terms of current tariffs on India and comparatively, India average applied tariffs is about 6%. It's just 6%. So it's not really that that large at this point in time, right? I mean, 6%, and now they're paying 25%, by the way, right now. India is paying 25%, and from what I read and analyze, I am seeing about 6%, only slightly above the global average of 5.4, meaning this is what they're charging the U.S. So saying that India is taking advantage of the U.S., at least for that, that's a point. And I will tell you, and I'll tell you what they are up to, because I start to understand what the administration really wants. You should listen to what they say, and then you need to understand what they mean, right? There's a huge difference, and you need to understand that whenever they say something, is what they say versus what they mean. And you need to get to the mean part, because this is what this channel is about. This is what the Black Swan is about. The Black Swan is about understanding what's really going on so we know what are the risks that we're running, either in our daily lives, in the jobs, in the economy, and more importantly, the stock market as well, obviously. So you need to know what they're saying, and I'll explain that to you. So what this protectionist idea that Modi is talking about, believe it or not, there is a word for it, and it's called the Swadeshi push. And I'm sure my Indian friends out there probably know what that is. It's an Indian nationalistic economic movement that emphasizes self-reliant local production and reduced dependence on foreign goods. There's a term for it. I mean, they're not saying let's make India great again, but this is kind of what they're saying. And it's got huge historical. Hey, Ben, stick around. I'm giving away 1 month worth of, to 10 subscribers, I'm going to give 1 month worth of my Patreon channel, free access. And it's beginning very soon, right? So basically what they're doing is it's a Swadeshi. It began as a grassroots resistance movement during the British colonial rule, and it's called the Swadeshi movement of 1905. In recent years, Swadeshi has been revived as a policy and cultural push. And you push Modi too far to he's going to push back, and that's kind of what he's doing right now. It encouraged consumers to buy local foods, crafts, focus on traditional industries. It reduced import dependency. India has tried to reduce reliance on Chinese import, foreign apps. Hey, Carl. This is not a political channel, right? This is ultimately it is a financial channel, but like everything else, we're trying. This is not about stock recommendation, but this is all about understanding all the risks that we have. And it's a good question, Jester. And actually, I'm going to be giving away today 1 month from my my Patreon channel, which actually has stock recommendation and portfolio analysis and all that, and news and morning commentary. But basically, what we're trying to do, this is called the black swan, and the black swan is looking for whatever can go wrong. As you know, it's the items that we are not expecting. And what's going on is I'm basically following about 10 black swans, right? The first one being the economy, okay? The first one, I'm following the stock market. Obviously, stock market is doing great. Looking at what's happening with the dollar. And now this is a section about the tariffs, right? We need to understand what's going on with the tariffs. But I'm not here to tell you, well, 25%, 15%, 30%, look what he says, look what she said. No, this is not about that. We need to understand kind of the concept, the principle to see, okay, is this thing going to be a good thing or a bad thing because it will impact the market ultimately, or your job, or the economy. I mean, all of the above. So we need to analyze. This is all about analysis. This is about understanding, and it's not political. I'm not here to say that Trump is wrong or Trump is right. I mean, it's up to you to decide on your own. At the end, you'll find out. But we need here to understand the facts and try to stay in the middle, because what I notice more and more, when you look at everyone's talking, it's either all the way to the right, all the way to the left. Can we have some, when Steve Miller says, they're taking advantage of us and they're basically overcharging us, I'm looking, I don't see 25% right now in the U.S., right? The U.S. is not paying 25% tariffs. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's looking at something else. Maybe it's rhetoric. Who knows? But then we're trying to understand what are they up to ultimately. And I'm going to tell you what I think they're up to. And obviously, if this tariff things goes the right way, which I think right now it's great for the U.S. because the U.S. is collecting about $300 billion in tariffs. Has the U.S. been taken advantage of? I will say this. The U.S., unfortunately, is starting to become irrelevant. Not so much that we're trying to make America great again. We're trying to make the U.S. and these are some of the basic things that I'm bringing to the table. Great. Thank you, Jester. So let me give you the facts. You could always check them out later. But basically, the U.S. right now is at risk of being losing its competitiveness in industrial and pharmaceutical sectors. That's a fact. We've not lost it yet, but the U.S. share of global manufacturing has declined from 30% to 18% to 16%. This is where Trump says they're taking advantage of us. I think he obviously used very extraordinary term, but in a way he has a point that critical industry like semiconductors, batteries, steel, machine tools, EV components, all of these things are increasingly dominated by China, North Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, and Germany. That's a fact. And you have aging infrastructure, underinvestment on the workforce, over-reliance on global supply chains. But why did we get to that point? The best president, but we don't agree. We're no big to criticize Israel. Anyway, and in terms of the U.S. pharmaceutical sector, that also is a problem because the U.S. leads in R&D and biotech. That's true, but it relies heavily on foreign production. 90 to 95% of active pharmaceutical ingredients come from outside this country. That's a concentration risk. Nobody wants to make money on these. So that's kind of the idea when I say that the U.S. is losing, and this is kind of pushing the administration to do something. Now, of course, you could always question, is this the right way of doing it? Is it the right way to coerce Modi into basically not doing business with Russia because you're enhancing the war? Well, I'm telling you what's really happening here. What Trump, I believe, is doing is not so much that he wants to stop the war in Ukraine. He's saying that obviously he wants to stop the war in Ukraine, but it's for public consumption. Okay, and I want my subscribers to get a feel as to what, if you're in the room, what are they really saying? What they're really saying is, and I think that's the overall arching strategies that they have, is they want to keep China away from Russia, he wants to keep them apart. He needs to keep them apart as much as possible. This is a big deal. This is a big deal because if you have the twin situation where you all three of them gets together, and don't forget they belong to BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They belong to this group of people that have decided to have discussion once in a while and sit and talk. And don't forget, I'm going to give 1 month of free subscription pretty soon. I'll give you the link and you click on it. The first 10 people only. I'm not giving it to everyone, obviously, because it takes a lot of time to prepare, and other people are paying for it. But for you, today, let's make an exception. Anyway, so what they're doing is they are basically in the process of looking at this situation, and they're saying, listen, we have to keep them apart because they're getting together. And then on top of that, the double whammy is that we are starting to become irrelevant. So this is what's happening. Now, I don't know if it's taking advantage, make America great again. These are big hyperbolic discussion, but that's a fact. It's a fact that they have something called BRICS. You could check it out. I mean, they haven't decided, they don't have a currency, but they're talking to each other. And the fact that the U.S. is slowly losing component. I mean, we're having some huge issue, with the battery supplies. I mean, semiconductors, between 5 to 7 years, and you're out. EV component, 3 to 5 years. Generic APIs, for medicine, 3 to 5 years. Steel, 5 to 10. Biotech, maybe a lot longer. But there's some major item that you're losing, so he's trying to do this. Now, the question is, obviously, for everyone, is he doing the right thing? Most of the counter medicine. Well, believe it or not, a lot of the regular medicines actually come from China. 90% of your the quote unquote cheap medicine. That's what he's showing. Now, what does he want? What does he want from India? What's the idea? What do you expect India to do? Do you want them to, stop doing business with Russia? I mean, you understand that the U.S. that India is, heavily dependent on the U.S. for trade. It's the largest trading partner, so they got to be careful they talk back to Trump. Technology, very high dependency on the U.S. Education, lots of Indian students come to this country, and I know a lot of them. They're very bright. Strategic alignment, all these things, they depend on the U.S. You need the U.S. for that. Now, of course, what they need Russia is they need very high dependency on weapons. Where we're medium, Russia basically is very high. They need India needs Russia for defense, and they need obviously Russia for energy. They don't need China for not as much, And I think that's what's happening, right? Because India needs Russia more than it needs China. So it's a contentious point. It's an issue that needs to be resolved. But the point is, they need the U.S. But then again, Trump has to be reasonable. What does he expect India to do? To just say, I'm going to let go of Russia. Then Russia is going to say, well, you know what? Then I'm not giving you weapons anymore, and I'm not giving you energy, and I'm not giving you strategic alignment. So you're pushing. You expect Modi to say, that's it, I'm done? Do you really expect that? Or, and that's the kicker, do you think that maybe you want some money out of Modi? Maybe you want some investment. India already needs America's support. Correct. Lodi. India has over 1 billion people. I mean, they've been friends for a long time. Let me show you an interesting picture that, they've been together. They've been friends, right? Look at that, right? They've been together for a long time. I mean, there's a big relationship here, and you don't want to lose that relationship. But at the same time, you also have this relationship, right? And that relationship, right? He's been close to all these people. But right now, I mean, they were friends almost. They were really, really, really close. So what has happened? Whatever is at the grip is after whether we're good as yet to. Anyway, so that's what's happening right now. Don't forget, I'm going to give 10 free subscription in case you didn't get that point. So what else is going on? So basically, India cannot just let go of China and of Russia and cannot let go of the U.S. So what do you do? As you've seen, and in fact today Trump was in CNBC and he mentioned that all the money that he's getting from Japan and from Europe, he's getting $550 billion from Japan, $600 billion from Europe, and another 750 of purchase commitment. No, I have to tell you that what kind of watch I'm wearing. You find out on your own. I'm not promoting any products. But basically, what's going on is that, that's an issue. That's a big issue for them. They're big friends, so they can't get rid of them. So what Trump is doing, and this is the second level of discussion that I want my subscribers to always understand, is that Trump basically wants some money from India. He's going to say, okay, fine. I understand it's going to be difficult. I mean, be reasonable. You cannot expect India to suddenly. India basically gets a lot of its oil, right? Russian oil is critical for India right now. Since 2022, Russian crude has been sold to India at deep discount. And of course, they're accusing India to taking it back and selling it out again. I don't think. I don't know, but oil is very tough to track, but this helped India manage inflation, reduce import bills, and grow refinery margins. So you cannot expect India to suddenly get away. They say, well, this is where Trump doesn't make any sense. Really? But maybe he's looking for something else. Russia became India's top supplier. As of 2023-24, Russia replaced Iraq and Saudi Arabia as India's largest crude supplier. How did he do? It's very simple. He said, you know what, I'll sell it to you. I'm going to sell the oil at a discount. You're not going to get this best price ever. So India would be stupid to say, no, we need it, right? India refiners adapted quickly to handle the Russian oil. And, what happened if India cuts Russian oil? Higher import cost. Obviously, then you're going to pay more money to turn Middle East and the U.S. crude at premium prices. Don't forget, $67 a gallon. The rupee's depreciation, fuel subsidy, strategic risk, could lose a key energy buffer. It would be a terrible thing for India to give up that. So, what are they going to do, right? But if I know that, and now that you know that, and I'm sure Trump knows that with his people, they're going to realize, what's going on? What are you doing? Well, what you're doing is you're basically forcing him or kind of asking. You say, you know what, then do something for me. What can you do then? Because you're going to be charged 25%, by the way, and even more maybe if you keep selling oil, because it's 25% because they could negotiate, plus who knows how much they're going to charge India. But Trump has to be very careful with India. But the point is, how much more are they going to charge and what they're going to do? I think he's looking for money. He's looking for, like he got from Japan, that gave the U.S. $550 billion. But again, when I hear, you have to be, and this is where the rubber meets the road here. You need to understand, what do we mean when we say that Japan is giving $550 billion, right? When we say that Europe is going to give the U.S. $600 billion of investment? Well, the European Union itself has admitted it doesn't have the power to deliver on the promise to, quote unquote, invest $600 billion in the United States economy. Only hours after making the deal with Trump. That's because the cash would come entirely from the private sector, and she has no ability to do it. The money, so that 650 is based on actual discussion with different businesses and companies, but these people still need to agree on it. they need to agree on that. And if they don't agree, you are conveniently ignoring the fact that there are tons of tariffs against the US and most of the planet are extremely protected against the outside trade. Yeah, no, they do have tariffs. No, although I'm looking into it and I found that they have 6% towards the US. I don't know where they say they're taking advantage. It's like the most insane country in the world to ask for the reciprocal trade. I mean, Gab is making some good points. So is Barry. You don't need anything from India. Uh, no, you do need a few things from India, believe it or not. Um, you know what? You know what you need from India? You need lots of things. And this is where I want you to be. I want you to be as informed as possible. But basically, um, I mean, India we know is reliant on the U.S. a lot. But don't think that we don't need anything from these countries. And the most important that you do need right now on this country, I will tell you what you need without getting into great detail so that you can understand it. And basically, what you need is you need to make sure these people don't stay together. You got to keep them apart as much as like you're in a playground and you're playing on your own, and these people, those three kids, are playing together and they're having a great time, and you don't really want that. You don't want that. You don't want that because then what's going to happen is, you don't want that, right? I mean, the U.S. doesn't want that, right? The U.S. right now is trying to avoid having all of them get together and enjoying their time together. You want that. Yeah, you want them to enjoying themselves and having a good time with the U.S., but not without the U.S. And unfortunately, right now, that's a problem for the U.S. Because what they're doing, they're getting very upset with the U.S. So, what does it mean ultimately, and why are you going to care? Well, first of all, there's two things that needs to happen, right? You need to stay. The U.S. needs to stay relevant, and that's like, and the U.S. trying to keep them from actually getting together too close. And frankly, you need to understand also that India has a lot of issues that they need to resolve, right? So, and Trump knows that too. So what's happening is because he also knows that the tariffs ultimately, okay, who cares if they're upset with the U.S.? Well, the reason you care is because one thing you don't want is you don't want them to be together, right? These three guys, right? That's, I mean, when I say the U.S., that's what the administration, they don't want this to be happening. They don't want all of them to stay together and to start to agree, because if they do that, that's going to make that difference even stronger and stronger, and the U.S. will lose more and more. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just trying to stay relevant, like any other country. Now, as far as you're concerned, that's how that's going to impact you, I will tell you. Because Trump knows very well that 25% tariffs on India, yeah, it's good money. We're talking about $300 billion. But I think they start to realize, because the news is out, that ultimately what's going to happen is someone has to pay those tariffs. And that's a big question. So far, you haven't seen it. But pressures are building. What I mean by that is that all that money, right, that Ford is paying, that GM is paying, a lot of people are paying those tariffs. It's not India, right? That money right now is staying at the wholesaler level, but for how long? That's a question. At some point, it's going to come down or not. The reason it's not coming down right now because there was some uncertainty. They didn't know it was going to be 10%, it's going to be 25%. But now they know tariffs are 50% on steel. India is paying 25%. Europe is paying 15%. So now, very strategically, and they have to be very careful, they're going to have to start summing it through. And it's happening. It's happening. Who do you think is going to pay? That's a question. So right now, I don't know if you've heard this story, but Trump, and I'm going to double check that for you because that could be good. It could be good. That Trump has been floating, and he talked about this morning, has been floating the idea of a refund tariff. Isn't that interesting? Yes, a tariff rebate check. Direct cash payment to middle and low income Americans funded by the billion collected in tariff revenue. Well, that's so nice for him to do that. What do you think he's doing it? Again, this is the news. What's really happening underneath? Someone went to him and said, listen, at some point, this thing is going to come and it's going to permeate through the system. Okay? It's going to permeate through the system and we're going to have to pay for it. So, well, maybe if I give you part of it, so at least it softened the blow a little bit. And the rebate concept aims to help offset rising prices resulting from tariffs by returning some of the revenue back to consumer. So they kind of admitted that it's going to come through. Trump described these as little rebate for Americans of a certain income level, though no detail has been released yet. You need to understand, over the past 7 months of 2025, it looks like they've collected in excess of 100 amount. Eligibility, the proposed amount, around roughly 600 per person or child, similar to current rebate proposal, and basically from the tariff revenue. So that's the idea. So for you're going to get some sort of money potentially, although he did talk about the other things as well, remember? He did talk about giving some money to every American, 25%, 45%. America put a 2.5 tariff. Now we are balls, so we are not backing down. Well, what's going on with the tariffs, really, right? What's the idea behind the tariffs? And don't forget, I'm going to give away 10 1-month subscription to my channel, to my Patreon channel, which is all about stocks and the market and good stuff. Something that, it's free anyway. Can't go wrong. The idea with the tariffs is, think about it this way. Yes, they're taking advantage of us, quote unquote, and yes, we want to collect some money, and yes, they're charging us more. It's more difficult for the U.S. to do it. That is true. But how else can you, quote unquote, coerce other people to pay attention to you? Now, you can, if you really want to do tariffs, you could put a team of 500 people together and negotiate away, right? You negotiate. How long did it take to negotiate the NAFTA, the North American? It took, I think, 2 years or 2 to 3 years. Okay, so we don't have that kind of time. Okay, so how are these people going to pay attention to you? How are you going to be relevant? I mean, the U.S. they pay attention to you because you're the immigration, the Doge. Remember, they did the local thing first. They went after the local thing. I don't want to be too much of a political channel, but I want to explain to you the concept. They went after Doge, which is local. Then they went after the immigration. Right now, nobody cares about that in India, but now these people need to care. And the reason you want to get their attention is because you need to move things around a little bit. You need to do two things. Remember, you want to make America relevant, so you need to have money invest in the U.S., and you have to keep these people from getting together too close, because then, you're in trouble. I mean, don't forget, Russia and China have huge amount of defense power. I mean, the Russia actually produces 250,000 ammunition a month, while the U.S. only 40,000. I'm not talking about bullets either. I'm talking about missiles and things like that. So these are not people to trifle with. And of course, you will notice that they're not really paying attention to Trump. Unlike Mexico and Canada, Taiwan, the Europeans, maybe a few Asian countries, but they're not budging. Those three, they're not budging, and that's more worrisome. What you need to look for, if they don't reply, they don't do, they don't follow, they're already together. We wanted Trump to, for it to be aggressive and dominate the world and prosper America first. The middle class is tired of. Yes, I mean that's kind of what he's doing. Now the thing is he doing it the right way, or are you pushing these people closer together? When you're going to go to Modi and you're going to tell him, listen, stop doing business with Russia. You're asking the man to basically stop importing 1/3 of the oil. How the heck is that going to happen? You know that's not going to happen. And he probably says, I know he's not going to do it. But what I want him to do is then give me something else because this is important to me. And of course, since Trump is already all the way in there, he needs something back. And that's so basically what you should expect next is some money or whatever from India coming into the U.S. So it'll be good for us. It'll be good for the U.S. It'll be good for you. Right, especially if you are in manufacturing and you are in these industries that are kind of fledgling. I mean, let me know what you think. You have to be careful because all this is kind of waving in a big kind of way. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as I am in the process of going through all the major risks that we have. I mean, tariffs is a big one, and that includes obviously India and a bunch of other names. I don't want to have 50 different risks, but obviously the tariff risk, there's a risks in tariffs, right? And you could see what happened at the beginning of the year. We lost the stock market because of the tariffs, and that did not like it. So one word that I've been using is called the Swadeshi push, which is an Indian nationalistic economic movement that emphasizes self-reliance, local production, and reduced dependence on foreign goods. There is a term. We don't have well, I guess you could say make America great again, but in India there is a term. There is a term about that. And as Trump has been pushing very overtly this weekend, basically what he said is this. He was a little upset, obviously, and over the weekend, Modi vigorously defended India's right to prioritize its own economic well-being at a time of global uncertainty. And today, the world economy is going through many apprehensions. I think he's starting to realize that this is going to be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more interesting for the rest of the world to actually deal with the U.S. Because the U.S. is really, really, I wouldn't say laying it thick, but certainly doing a lot of damage right now because a lot of them are actually wondering, what is really going on? What are you guys up to? Because at the end of the day, and you should be worried about that as well. Don't let it happen to you. You need to understand what's happening out there. You need to understand what's going on. And don't forget, very shortly, I will be giving out 10 of my subscription. So that's what India has been doing, and he's urging Indian to boost the economy by buying and selling only homegrown products made by the sweat of an Indian. And Stephen Miller, on the other hand, is accusing India on Sunday to take advantage of the U.S. on trade and financing. In India, he says that India portrays itself as being one of our closest friends in the world, but they don't accept our products. They impose massive tariffs on us. I don't know about that part, but so the point is, what's going on with Trump is that, and the organization, they want to split these three guys apart. They definitely don't want these three guys apart. They want to collect some money, but they know ultimately you're going to pay for it, so they're going to give you a bit of money, basically, through some sort of refund. The world already had tariffs in the U.S. Some refuse to let the U.S. sell in their country. Yeah, I mean, Greg is right. I mean, I don't know if you know, but have you seen if you've gone to France, have you seen any Ford 150 pickup? right? So Trump is saying that's what's going to happen now. Okay, Africa don't need America to be great. It's already great. That's great. iPhone will return to USA and leave India. Right? That's a good point. Who made that point? Gypsy. That's a good point because what is the India? What does the India is relying on the U.S. for? Well, U.S. is India's largest trading partner, surpassing China. So 128 billion. U.S. companies are major investors in India: Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple. India depends on the U.S. tech firm for cloud infrastructure, chip semiconductors, big tech platform like YouTube and Metro. The U.S. is one of India's top defense partner, signed key agreement enabling tech sharing and joint application. The U.S., listen to this, the U.S. hosts 260,000 Indian students, making Indians the largest foreign student groups in the U.S. So there's a strong connection here. There's a strong connection. Anyone from India could tell us what the view from India is as to what's happening here. That would be interesting to find out. I will admit we're very divided in the United States, but we don't think for a second we don't rise up against foreign threats. Well, okay, but India is not fighting with us. Oh, we haven't lost nothing because they have options and we are always had, Greg, they don't need USA, so most probably USA. No, they need the US. That's not that. No. India considering heavy tracking all US tech company, digital survey they earn from. It's obvious everybody wants to come here. Well, I mean, the U.S. owes 260,000 Indian students, making India the largest foreign student group in the U.S. I mean, in remittance from Indian professional in the U.S. sends billions of dollars home each year to India. I think that Trump or someone like Trump came in too soon, quite frankly. I'll explain to you why. I think that these three were getting together. Why? Well, they close to each other, quite frankly, and they not a bad thing. I mean, they want to make their country great again. Why not? And I think China was getting more and more, powerful in terms of its army, in terms of what it knows how to do, in terms of what they generate. And then, Russia was starting to say, okay, let me start to, invade and do the thing that I'm supposed to do. And they were getting, and then Trump came in the middle and said, whoa, no, you guys are not going to play together anymore. That stops right here. Because I know what's happening. I mean, Trump has, dozens of advisors around him. You don't ever think that he's just out there coming up things on his own and say, okay, we're going to impose 25% tariffs. No, because somebody told him, well, if you're going to say that, keep in mind that India relies heavily in the U.S., but it also relies heavily on with China. I mean, with Russia. So what are we going to do about that? That's a big topic. We need to be able to have them basically deal with each other. So be careful. Be careful what you're doing because you're going to push them closer together, right? You don't want that either. And so we've established that. Now, I will say that as far as the relationship that India's reliance on Russia and China, it's India is not that reliant on China, quite frankly. It's got it's high in terms of partner. It's very low in terms of defense. They're not exchanging any. Moderate in terms of technology. Low in terms of education. I mean, basically, Indian students don't really go to China and vice versa. So it's not such a big issue, but it is a fact that India is very high for trade and the U.S., very high for technology, very high in education, very high in strategic alignment. So the question is, what is India going to do? because on one hand, Trump just said that Russia is that India is a dead economy. He said that. In fact, earlier in January, Trump was pushing India to buy more U.S. weapon in trade rebalancing. When he met, Trump emphasized that India should be increasing its procurement of American-made security equipment and moving towards a fair bilateral trading relationship. What Trump also is trying to do, I mean, you wanna put back the balance, where the trade imbalance, because if one thing you don't want to have is imbalances in your trade imbalance. Why not? What's wrong with that? Well, if you are importing more than you're exporting, okay, what are you? What are they getting from you? What are these? What do they want to trade with the U.S.? What do they want from the U.S.? This is not barter, right? Basically, what you're doing is that you are giving them the thing that they want. And what do they want? They want the dollar. They want the dollar. And why do they want the dollar? Because the dollar is still a reserve currency. But the same people that want the dollar also get together and they put together BRICS. And the idea is we might want to have our own currency. Okay. In 10 minutes, I'm going to give away 10 free of my Patreon channel. I'm going to give 10 1 month free access in exactly 10 minutes. Okay, let me finish my thought. So what they're doing, right? So how far is that going to go? How long can they keep doing that? So and the issue is Trump also called India a very big abuser on trade during his re-election campaign. I mean, they have Trump and Modi have cultivated a close relationship during the U.S. president's first term. It's been a strategic partner, but you got to buy because we've got this kind of imbalance. And when you have an imbalance like that, what the U.S. government is saying is buy more stuff from us. Because if you keep sending stuff over, the only thing that you're sending is the dollar. And the reason you're sending the dollar is because the dollar is a reserve currency. What happened when that's not the case anymore? Because once these countries get together and stay together and bind together and have their own currency, they won't need the US dollar. And the risk, my friends, and this is something that you need to be fully aware, is that then what happens is the US basically is left alone and nobody wants the currency. And by the way, you forgot to make everything, right? Because you exported everything and you import everything and now they don't want the dollar anymore. That's the real concern. Ultimately, I mean, the big geopolitical concern is that you become relevant, and this is this idea that Trump talked about, the "Make America Great Again." He's just saying, let's make sure we're not irrelevant. Like I told you, the U.S. isn't on track to lose some major issues having to do with the ability to make things. Right now, what is the U.S. Doing that's not doing great? Basically, the U.S. share of global manufacturing output has declined from 30% to 18%, 16% today from the 2000. Semiconductor, battery, steel, machine tools, heavy components. If you work in those industries, be careful because you're losing ground to China, South Korea, Taiwan, and Germany. And that's why recently Trump went to Taiwan and said, well, you know what? Hold on a second here. You got to do more. You got to invest more. Historically, Taiwan was investing like $4 billion in the U.S. No, I need $100 billion. I need more money. In fact, I want you to come over here and with the Taiwan Semiconductor, because 60% of semiconductors are made in Taiwan. I want you to make it here. Help Intel, which is not doing that great. These are big, major geopolitical issues. Why are they geopolitical issues? Because You need all these countries to work together. Now, of course, it would be great if you don't need tariffs and everybody's playing fair, right? And everybody wants to basically exchange. Oh, you want some oil? I'll give you this. I'll give you this and the dollar. You use the dollar because the dollar is strong. The only problem is not to pick on the guy because he's not here. But when the what happened with the war with Russia, Biden basically weaponized the dollar. He weaponized the dollar, meaning that he said to Russia, "You can't use the dollar anymore." And since everybody loves the dollar, you're going to be in big trouble. So you kind of push them together. So that's why uh, um, Putin turned to Modi and said, "Okay, you know what? I'll sell it to you for half price. I'll sell you oil for half price." What is he, stupid? He's going to say no? Of course he's going to take it. So you got them close together. Now, is Trump doing something any different? Well, be careful because by you upsetting and pushing and tugging Modi, you're going to do the same thing. Because now they're thinking, wow, I mean, what am I going to do with this guy? He wants me to stop buying from you, and you know I can't. Well, then you have to choose. It's like you're on a date. Who do you want? You have to choose one person or the other. That's a tough choice. That's a tough choice, but that's what Trump does. And Trump is not, there's nothing personal about Trump, right? He just wants what he wants, or the US administration is very direct. Now, is that a good thing? Well, I mean, you have to understand the US is semiconductors, years to critical loss, estimated 5 to 7 years. If you don't do anything in 5 to 7 years, you're done in the semiconductor business. EV components, battery, 3 to 5 years. Don't pick too much on Elon Musk. You better do something because you're losing that battle. API generics, 3 to 5 years. Still, you still have time, 5 to 10. But it's the bottom line is this: the clock is ticking. U.S. manufacturing and pharmaceutical competitiveness could critically erode by 2030 without bold, consistent investment. The key word is bold. I mean, the boldness is what's important, right? And maybe this is where Trump is. He's bold. Well, we'll find out. The U.S. still leads in innovation and IP and production and supply chain control. Now, having said that, I mean, I want to make sure we're clear. Okay, all these things that we're talking about is about 20% of the U.S. economy. 80%, 70 to 80% really has to do with services. The U.S. is a thinking country, I guess, exports banking and financing and everything to do with services, right? That's what the U.S. Strength is. So you're saying, well, who cares about the 20%? Well, and that was the idea. That's why they allow it to go down from, the 80s, we were 30% manufacturing down to 16%, because the idea was to say, well, but we're all friends, right? Nobody's going to do anything bad to each other. So you take the dollar and I take your things, right? And this is great. So we don't, our factories, we buy products that are much cheaper, right? It's much cheaper to buy, and therefore we could do it. The thing is, that didn't happen that way, right? Basically, Russia said, well, yeah, but I want this and I want that, and I'm invading for the reason we could discuss later on. So that's the problem. It's a problem because then the more they do it, the more it becomes complicated, and then they basically, losing ground slowly, very slowly. So the U.S. has to do something, and that's what you're seeing. Now, of course, when you listen to the news and you listen to everything, what you see is basically, Trump is doing this. Oh, he fired. By the way, we're going to do, I think this afternoon, we're going to talk about the BLS firing. There's a lot more to that story, by the way. There was a lot of things going on in the Bureau of Labor Statistics because Trump just fired the woman. And you see, he fired her because she basically lied or some ridiculous things that we'll find exactly. There were some issues at BLS to begin with. Now, could you have addressed the issue? That's a question. But there was lots of issue. there was a lot of issues. Okay, we'll talk about it later. Anyway, back to India and what's going on right now is that there is a need to do it. There is a need to understand what's happening because obviously all of these, for example, in terms of pharmaceutical, the U.S. leads in R&D and biotech innovation, but it relies heavily on foreign production for 90 to 96%. So even though it's only 20% of the GDP in the U.S., yeah, but it's important. I mean, you don't want semiconductors? Somebody said the iPhone before. You don't want iPhones? You don't want the medicine? Because on 2020, that was this thing where everybody saw it happening and they said, oh my God, we have no more medicine. How are we going to get it from, suppose China closes tomorrow? Because the worst scenario, here's the worst scenario. You're by yourself in the corner. Nobody likes you anymore. You don't make anything and nobody wants the dollar. You're done. Then the only way, unfortunately, and that's you have to be careful, the only way for you to become relevant and people to listen to you, you have to go to war. You go to war, you go to India, you say, you are going to invest in my country. You're going to go to Taiwan, and I hate to tell you, but Taiwan, small country, obviously, he went there, and you had kind of, not that the U.S. Was going to invade Taiwan, but it was a little tough on them, I will tell you. Basically, he told Taiwan that we might not be there any longer if you don't do things for us a little bit more. You know, we wanna see you more, right? We wanna hear what you have to say. You're a little quiet. Are you doing everything that you can, Taiwan? Because you're right next to Russia, and of course the president. He said, well, "I thought we had understanding. I thought we were friends and we would always be together, and it would go on and on and on." No, Trump says no, not really. In fact, I might decide to not to help you. I wanted to get the exact quote, but basically, the president of Taiwan wanted to come to the U.S. and basically said, "No, don't bother right now. You don't need to come right now." So it was a bit of a rough day for the Taiwanese president. I wanted to drop by the way, and say hi. And he says, "No, no, no, don't drop by. You don't need to come by. You don't need to come by because, frankly, I don't, I don't, I ain't even sure I want to protect you against China. I mean, and don't forget, for years Taiwan has been doing great, and they only invested a small amount of money to the U.S. But now Trump said, "No, I want to see some real money." How much does he want? I think, I think he wants how much investments does Trump wants? I think it was he wants a lot. He wants from Taiwan, and Taiwan is in trouble because they're right next to, and China said this belongs to us, people. This is not something that belongs to you guys. This belongs to us, and we want it. Yeah, I mean, Trump has pushed for a major expansion of Taiwanese investment in U.S. semiconductor manufacturing. That's what he wants from India, I bet you. We're ready to play ball now. That's where we did Prince's back. India is Russia's. Oh my God. How much investment does Trump want from Taiwan? Trump highlighted a $100 billion investment plan by TSMC, which is Taiwan Semiconductors, great stock, by the way, to build 5 chip fabrication facilities in the U.S. over the next few years. The investment builds on on Taiwan's prior $65 billion plan, bringing the total investment to about 165. But the U.S. officials reportedly are pressing for an even higher commitment. You want me to keep you away from the bully next door, China? That's what he. So basically, U.S. now want up to $400 billion. Okay, let me follow from the story, but first, let us do our giveaway. That shouldn't take that long. I'm just gonna give you something for free, right? So basically, what you're gonna have, you see the sign gifted for a month. I'm going to now uh, in the um, in the comment section. I'm going to post a link, and then you should be able to access it. Give me a second. Okay. Okay. All right. It's only for the first 10, so you have to be very quick. Ready? Go. So basically, you click on the link that I've just given you, and you get a free 1 month. I just posted it now. Free 1 month Patreon promotion for 10 subscribers. So you get to see all the stuff that I do, and you get to see every day. I have like 300 posts. You can see the trades that I do. I just bought a stock recently. You can see what I'm buying. Obviously, it has to do with rare earth chemical, rare earth mineral, which is great. Okay, so now back. Let me see. The idea is to so click on the link that I showed you. It's called Patreon, and then you'll have access to it. Anyway, so back to our discussion. So that's what's happening right now. I mean, it's a little bit tough environment, but so back to what I was telling you about Taiwan semiconductors. Trump highlighted 100 billion. So now U.S. officials reportedly are pressing for an even higher commitment. I want 400 billion to secure favorable tariff rate, especially for Taiwan to qualify for the lowest 15% tier. So basically, he wants now 400 billion. So you see what's happening, right? Basically, and this is, I think, what he wants from Modi. But if I'm telling you this, they know that too, right? The thing is, when you listen to the news and you look at what's happening out there, I am not so sure you're getting the full picture. I mean, they're highlighting mostly, the things that you would not like if you don't like Trump. You say, well, this is not good behavior or whatever. But I don't think that's what's happening, right? What's happening is you're in the process of essentially trying to remaking the world order in a way that, frankly, that could be a problem because you're upsetting a lot of people right now. But then you have no choice to upset all these people. No choice because, frankly, if you don't, you're going to become irrelevant. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're concerned about. But who knows? Who knows? I think at the end of the day, the U.S. still has a card to play. The U.S. is able to understand what's happening, and we shall see what happens. But basically, what Trump wants, and these are the concept that I want you to take from you, right? Is basically the U.S. wants to remain relevant. So the tariffs are basically used as a means to coerce into investing in the country. Now, originally what he wanted, what the U.S. wanted was, well, you come over, and this is a story they told you, you come over and you build it here. But that takes too long. And then they realize, you know what, the easiest thing to do, why don't they invest some cash over? Why don't you bring some money and just buy or whatever? It's faster. The only thing is, they don't really want to do that. I don't think they really want to do that, all of them. I think they don't want to pay the 15%, but they also know that deep down it's going to be passed on. The problem that they don't like the tariff is because if it's 50% tariffs, then nobody's going to pay the tariffs and they're not going to buy from you. So you have nothing to sell. That's the only reason why they're upset. So what do? Well, they're basically going to need to, bring the money over, but they also know that, but we're not going to invest 500 billion. Where do we get that money from? And this is what happened with the situation with the European, where they basically came in and they said, well, hold on, I mean, we're not going to invest $600 billion. What did you say that to him? Right? Europe cannot deliver the 600 billion. In fact, all of them are realized. Trump is my president, according to Annette. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that he acts, right, and he talks the way you would want somebody to talk to you, and that is his great strength. That's why he had huge rating. And frankly, you have no time, so you need somebody that moves fast. Now, is it the right way of doing it? We shall find out. Okay, but that's the way he's doing it. That's what's working right now. So keep it going. What can I say? But they also know that they really don't want to give any money to the U.S. deep down because they're being coerced into doing, right? You want the 15% tariff? But hold on. We weren't even paying that last year. Now you want us to be happy about 15 instead of being 50, but then you also want us to give you money. Yeah. And that's the idea because 15% is probably not a lot for them. They were, um, they could afford a little bit of a dip. The thing is now Trump wants some money. The U.S. wants some money. And Europeans are basically saying yes, but I will tell you that, for example, if you take the European Union deal, admitted that it doesn't have the power to deliver on a promise to invest in the 600 billion. I can't promise that. It is something the EU as a public authority can guarantee. It is something which is based on the intention of private companies. So basically what she did, she promised to Trump what private companies would do in Europe to give to the US. But they don't want to do that. So they are. So then, of course, even this morning, Trump said, "I'm going to get 600 billion from this, 500 billion, 750." They, like, for example, they promised that Europe has promised that they're going to be purchasing 750 billion dollars of oil and gas from the U.S. But over 3 years, so that's 250 billion. But the European don't purchase that much. The U.S. purchased fertilizer, uranium, palladium from Russia. Cut that first, Uncle Sam. MAGA is the brain of America. Speaking of MAGA, Young, I will say this, be careful. Because what's happening with MAGA right now, they're a little bit upset at Trump. And for this whole thing to work, because don't forget, this tariff thing that he's doing, I mean, does he have the right, does Trump have the right to impose tariffs? It does, in a way, but only under emergency situation. Yes, the president has broad legal authority to impose tariff, and Donald Trump has used that authority aggressively. But basically, the U.S. grant Congress the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. So they technically have the right to do it. But however, as over the decades, Congress had delegated significant tariff power to the executive branch. So even that, yes, he can do it, but only on the emergency reason, right? So Trade Expansion Act of 1962, the Trade Act of 1974, the international emergency, that's what he's using, economic power. So, but even that, you have to be careful that you're using these powers a bit too loosely. And right now, in the Court of Appeal, they are fighting those things. I mean, they may not succeed because Trump is very, very popular right now. And this is where the MAGA thing comes in, right? This is where MAGA becomes very important to Trump. Who said the thing about MAGA? That was a good comment. Who said that? I think his name is Young. Yes, Young Gunk. MAGA is the brain of America. Well, I don't know if it's the brain, but it's certainly giving Trump and the people around him the power, meaning that he's got Congress and the Senate that are going to follow him because he's got the MAGA. The problem is right now, the concern is that he might be losing that. Why? He's losing MAGA because he upsetted MAGA when he bombed Iran, but that was okay. But then he also gave some weapons technically, and this is where India, Modi is saying, you're not consistent. You're giving weapons, right, to Ukraine to keep that war going. Although you say I didn't give the weapon, I sold it to them. Okay, you sold it to them, but still, um, you know, you selling it to them. The only thing is you're gonna need U.S. Army men or soldiers or technical experts to go in and help out, right? You're gonna need that, so you're involved, and MAGA does not like that. Um, they want us. They want the U.S. So basically, remain in the U.S., do business, but don't get involved in any kind of war with anybody else. And then, of course, the biggest one of all, and the one that I think is the most complicated, convoluted. We need to say anything he wants to do. Well, I mean, when I say look, take a look at the discussions that they are having with him and the MAGA people. A lot of them are very upset at Trump right now. Joe Rogan, for example, and all these people, and especially now, the biggest one, like I was going to say, is what happened with Ghislaine Maxwell, right? First, there was nothing. There was a list, and then they said, no, there's no list. There's nothing going on. Let's move on. Let's talk about something else. I said, but we were supposed to clean the swamp. We'll never know what went on. So what's going on? This is not possible. We need to know what is happening. And that has upsetted a lot of people. That has upset it to a lot of people, a lot of MAGA people specifically. And then, of course, they all now want to say what's going on, right? And then, of course, the Justice Department told Trump in May that his name among many of the Epstein's file, and somehow he says, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Well, but you said that you're going to be more forthful. Are you hiding things from us, right? Are you hiding from us? And basically, that is not something that the MAGA people want. The MAGA people want to know what's going on, and Trump basically said, no, nothing is going on, and in fact, let's not talk about it. And guess what? They had to talk about it, and guess what? They had to come back, and they had to unfortunately, have Congress essentially state that yes, we're going to be talking about it. And we're gonna bring her in. Believe it or not, I mean, I can't believe we're even talking about this, but yes. What's going to happen is you're going to have all of these people going in and out, and that's going to be a big problem. Why is this a problem? It's going to be a problem because you don't know what they're going to come up with. You have no idea what they're going to come up with. And that's so imagine, I mean, I don't think anybody could imagine what's going on because there's so many balls in the air. We're just talking India right now. Look where we're now with Epstein. What does that have to do with Epstein? Because Trump is able to talk and say, I want 25% from you and I want you to invest in my country because he used Emergency Power Act, the tariff law. But technically, they could say, you have no right to do that. In fact, give the money back to all these people. Stop. You're scaring the children. That literally could happen. That could literally happen. I mean, I don't think so, as long as Trump remains has the power that gives the Senate and Congress gives him. But he could lose that very quickly if they find out that this woman is starting to talk, and saying things that are not nice. Now, having said that, I will tell you that Pam Bondi's deputy went to talk to Maxwell for like 6 hours or 10 hours, and then he got 100 names from her. And somehow she's being moved to a very nice facility. So I think they're making a deal with her. Trump may actually give her, um, you know, basically let her go like he wants to um, with the PDD. Who knows what's going to happen there? But the point is, the MAGA is important because if you lose them, you lose the power, and then you're going to see how quickly the courts are going to be able to overturn. Because then, you know, you have to understand that there's a huge amount of power that is being applied to all these people that you might not be aware. For example, right now at the Fed, right? We all know, I know, you know the news that he wants the Fed gone, right? He wants that guy gone. Yeah, but what you may or may not realize, and listen to that video from 2 days ago, basically they kick him out. I mean, the one of the Fed governor left, and we had two dissent, first time in 30 years. So there's pressure being applied on all these people. And obviously, if you're with Trump and you know he's got the power, you say, listen, you got to go. You've got to go. So please, and I mean, they didn't force her out. She basically said, you know what, I'm going to retire early from the Fed. I'm going to teach. So I'm going to be gone pretty soon. Instead of leaving in January of 2026, I'm leaving right now. And by the way, I'm not voting on the rates today. I don't want to be associated with this thing. This is too much pressure. I'm out. So she's out. Two people. Trump is replacing her with this week with a third person, right? So you got three people that are going to vote for lower rates. So technically, you should see lower rates sometime in August. And the pressure that I'm talking about is that probably on the Fed himself, on Powell, it is quite possible that you're going to see a tremendous amount of power happening at that level. So we shall see. What you want to do really is you want to make sure you understand what's happening, because it impacts tremendously the economy. It's going to impact what else is it going to impact? It's going to impact the economy. It's going to impact the jobs, right? Because if you have a stock market, why? Because right now the stock market is saying, okay, is they doing what I'm doing right now? They're saying, well, okay, so this woman is gone. So, I mean, and then of course we saw some numbers on Monday that reduces a lot the amount of energy that we have, and reduces the employment has gone down by a lot. Of course, he fired that lady because he said, what do you mean? We had 255,000 job creation, and now we don't have them in May and June. What's going on here? You're fired, okay? But the point is, all these things are tallying up, and the market is saying, okay, you have low job creation. We got a bunch of people on the Fed that want lower cuts, so we're going to have lower cuts. But if Trump loses the power that he has right now, and you don't get the rate cuts, don't forget, you have 7 governors. Out of the 7, likely 3 are going to want lower cut, but still you have 4, and the Fed chair is a governor. You have 4 of them that still don't want rate cuts. What are we going to do about that? And if the market thinks it's going to happen, because the market is going up, by the way, my friend, and I recommended that in my Patreon channel, by the way, a good stock that is actually going up because it is a rare earth mineral. Besides the one that the U.S. bought into. So basically, all these things are building up, and you're going to have, and then you don't have the rate cut, because Trump lost the power, so he's not able to push these people around to do what he wants, and then the market will collapse. That is a concern. So don't underestimate the power of the MAGA people. The power of the MAGA people are extremely very strong. We need to protect ourselves. Carol, yes. Give me one reason why Trump would care about MAGA thinks now that he's in running for re-election? Oh my God, Gregory, that's a great question. So let's say you're the president and you want to decide anything, right? You say, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to tell Modi there that on top of the 25, I'm going to make another 30% on top of it because of what he's doing. And yeah. If he doesn't have the MAGA people behind him, when I mean the MAGA, what we're talking about is the power to basically move the people in one direction or another, not so much to vote for him, but to vote for all the Republicans in Congress, which are coming up for a vote next year. Because right now, he's going around and he's saying, I do whatever I want. Nobody says anything. The Democrats are gone. The Republicans are all for him. So this is great. The issue is what happens if for some reason, people like Joe Rogan and all these people start saying, oh, what Trump is doing. Trump said he was gonna tell us what's going on, and he's lying because probably he's part of it. He's part of the thing. He's one of them. Blah blah blah. It becomes a big topic. They were very, very, very upset. Don't you remember that video that happened with when Ted Cruz, right? He was talking to Tucker Carlson. Two Trump people, and Tucker Carlson said, "Hey, you want us to take over Iran? Who are the Iranian? Well, there's a Muslim one. There's no Iranian are not Muslim. Sorry, too late for MAGA. Iranians are not Muslim; they are Persian. Okay, how many people live in Iran? And he couldn't answer it, and they was trying to fight it out because people like Tucker Carlson do not want the U.S. to be involved in another war. Did Iraq, did Afghanistan. Don't forget the last time the U.S. won a war was a long time ago, and since then it's been one disaster after the other. So they don't really want to do that anymore. So the reason why MAGA is important, even though Trump is not doesn't want to be elected, what's going to happen is the Republicans, instead of saying nothing, are going to start talking. They're going to say, I don't agree. I disagree with what the president is doing. I don't agree should be doing. In fact, I think you're starting to hear. I think that you're starting to hear, and this is why this channel is important because it gives you a little bit more background. I think which Republican are not agreeing with Trump lately. It was some guy, I forgot. So they dare questioning what's going on. And that's when there's a bit of a weakness going on within Trump. Blah blah blah. Grassley, Rand Paul, Don, Tom. There's lately. There's a few of them obviously that are complaining, but I know that Susan Collins opposes nomination. Well, that's old. But there was some the rumbling about what he's doing with, I forgot what it was. He was doing something and they were complaining. Yes, lately. As of August 2025, several prominent Republicans are openly broken ranks with Trump over energy policy, tariff authorities, spending priorities, and Trump personal appointments. August 4th, Chuck Grassley blocked Trump Treasury nominees in protest of his push to dismantle wind. Senator Curtis joined Grassley's blockade. Betrayal of Western states. Warned publicly that Trump is becoming a king-like Rand Paul in July figure due to unchecked tariff powers. August 1st, Senator Tom Hill. So what you're seeing now, and this is where the MAGA thing is important because these people say, you know what? I want to be reelected, right? Trump has a job, he's fine. I want to be reelected. If I lose the power of those people behind me that want a certain thing, like they don't want a king, they don't want the deep state, I'm going to lose it. And if I lose them, I won't be reelected. And therefore, I'm not going to support him. So I'm going to start saying no, 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 no. And it's starting to pile up. And that's why I am telling you, whoever made that comment, we're voting Gisli out in Ohio first chance we get. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? You get him in or you get him out. But obviously, these people, like with this, who said actually? I think Mr. Brad 1608, right? Mr. Brad 1608 says we are voting. We're going to vote Grassley out in our first chance we get. Correct. But Grassley, and let me bring out to you what's going on. Basically, he's blocking Trump's nominees in protest for his push to dismantle wind and solar tax credit, accuse the administration of sabotaging America's clean energy advantage. This Senator Chuck Grassley is not a stupid man, right? He says, okay, if I say that, how many people are behind me? Right? Because that right? And if he fears that Trump is weakening, then he'll do it because these people look out for themselves as well. They're politicians, right? So you have to be very careful. You have to be careful that you understand what they're doing because, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, by the way. I mean, this is not a political channel, although we're going over politics right now. It's about tariffs, and it's about, most importantly, the risks that we are running all the time, and you need to understand them. The risk I'm talking about is how is the economy going, right? Right now, great, 3% growth. People will tell you, what do you mean great? We had a huge amount of employment just dropped a couple of days ago. I mean, the numbers, and then the other numbers get revised downward by a lot. Yes, that is true. There's less people, less job openings, but okay, this is the right hand. We have less job openings. Let me give you the left hand. Well, for you, there's less people looking for work. Right? There were plus 2.6 million people in this country born, U.S. born, that were looking for work, but we lost 1.6 million that were not because of the immigration policy. So it's not like you have less job being created and more people looking for job. It's the other way around. I'm not saying it's a good thing to kick the people out. I'm just saying that's what's happening, right? So basically, yes, in terms of as far as the economy is concerned, we have less job creation. Yeah, it's worrisome because it's low, 70,000. You want like 200. Okay, but you notice that the unemployment rate didn't shoot up by a lot because you have less people in this country as well looking for job. The stock market is doing fantastic. I think it was up 500 points yesterday, if I get it correctly. We had 500 people yesterday, right? 500 points yesterday. So the market is doing fantastic. Now, the question is, how much longer is it going to do? That's the question. It is going to be feminine. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but Carol, at some point, you are nuts. Goodbye. Wow, Carol, what do you mean goodbye? We're talking here. Hello. Hello, Kenneth. So the stock market is doing great, and it should continue to. Good take so far. It should. There will be lots of money made in the stock market right now. Now the problem is you have to be careful and be aware of this. The market is overvalued. Yes, the market is overvalued because it's gone up and it's much more overvalued than in Europe. So be aware of that. But if the economy keeps on going and you have lower rates, and frankly, the U.S. economy is extremely resilient. So the next thing you need to worry about is obviously tariffs, and the tariffs are huge. And basically, the thing with the tariffs is basically what's happening is that Trump is using the tariffs as a mean to have the U.S. remain relevant. That's what he's doing. He wants us to he has to be relevant. So what else are you going to do? Unless you're going to invade a country, you're going to say, hey, Modi, you rely heavily in the U.S., so you're going to do something for me. Powell and Trump basically is trying to reverberate and rehash what's going on with the Fed and stop Powell. Hopefully he wants him out, basically, believe it or not. And so, but right now, I think more and more there's about three of the governors at the Fed are going to be for Trump. The other four was for quote unquote Biden. The chances are you probably going to get a rate cut, but not sure yet. Israel and Iran, that's a risk that you need to follow very closely because this is not over. Trump did not like the idea. My microphone is very choppy. Okay, let me make sure. Let me know if this is really bad. Otherwise, I could shift to some other. Let me shift to another one. But basically, that's what we're saying, right? We're saying that this could become a big issue very quickly, and we don't want that to happen. Now, is this going to continue? I don't know. But I believe that the tariffs are a very big issue because they impact lots and lots of people. Let me double check here what's going on. Release the Epstein file. Okay, I think we're good. A little bit of choppiness, but we're in the middle of nowhere here. So anyway, so the next thing is the other risk that we have is Iran versus Israel. Let's be very careful. Let's be very careful because what we have is the fact that Israel is not out of the wood yet, and they're not going. The price of Indians' cameras just went up. Israel is not over yet. They want to. He wants to do lots of different things. In He wants to do lots of things in Israel because Netanyahu is. They're trying to rein him in, but he doesn't want to go to jail or he doesn't want to have any problems. So that's the issue. Now, as far as China and the decoupling, yes, that's what's happening right now. We have a decoupling with China, unfortunately. What that means is that they're basically looking to, they've done everything they could from the U.S. I mean, that's kind of the argument. And now they're going to say, well, thank you very much, but I'm moving on. And, be careful because the China needs the U.S. Unfortunately, right now they need the U.S. because they need to sell all of this stuff to someone. Inflation watch. We need to understand this is risk number 8. You need to understand that risk. You need to understand that risk because that risk is really we don't know if everything is going to be passed on. Everyone needs to the U.S., says Kenneth. Yes, I mean, the U.S. is 25% of GDP, so yes, that's a fact. Everyone needs the U.S. Inflation watch. Inflation watch is a problem because we need to make sure that that they don't pass the cost to the consumer. This hasn't happened yet, and we don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that is a concern because if they do pass it, and I believe that the administration knows that, they already know this can be passed on. So what they're doing, they're basically saying, you know what, we're going to give you a tariff refund, $600. How about that? But I think estimates, but I mean, this is a very gross estimate. The estimate is that this could cost between $1,200 and $1,500 extra. Um, 12 to $1,500 extra for the tariffs. But again, don't just look at it this way. Don't look at it, wow, that's thanks a lot. No, no, no. You have to understand what they're trying to do, right? What are they trying to do? What is government trying to do? The government is trying to keep the U.S. relevant again. That's what the U.S. is trying to do. What does that mean? It means, for example, that right now in the U.S., believe it or not, and then of course in terms of risk, I have Russia, which I have to worry about, and the Trump administration. But the U.S. right now, unfortunately, um, is um, is about the U.S. share of global manufacturing output has declined 30% to 16% today for the past 25 years. Critical industry like semiconductors, batteries, steel, machine, all this is on its way down. So that's a little bit of a concern that the U.S. has, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're basically saying that what we have is a critical industry like semiconductors, batteries, steel, machine tools, and EV components are increasingly dominated by China and South Korea. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, that's not my problem over here, they're over there. No, but it impacts you. It impacts you because what they're going to do is either they invest or they don't, and then they move the jobs overseas. And you need to know, you have to, this is the purpose of this channel, which is called the black swan, is that we need to know where the next black swan is going to come from. Where is the next risk? We need to know where the risks are coming from. Where are the risks coming from? That's what we need to know. Because it impacts your job, it impacts everything. And plus, you don't want to walk around like you don't understand anything. And the issue is whenever you listen to anyone or you go on the news or Bloomberg or CNBC or whatever, you realize that these people are telling you what you want to hear, right? They tell you what you, if you listen to certain channels without naming all the names or whatever, if you don't like the administration, then you listen to this channel and they will tell you that, well, look, they fired that poor woman at BLS. This is not good because now we're not going to be able to trust the numbers that are coming out of the administration, which is exactly what the administration is saying for firing the first woman to begin with. So what's going on? And I'll do a show this afternoon on that to explain to you what's going on at BLS, which is basically the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You know, was she cheating? Was she lying? Was she doing something against? There appeared there was some problem in that administration, and I guess you could have done something. No, since you're the boss. No, you don't have. Okay, well, now you're fired. So what's really going on? And that's why it's important for you to have a discussion around the topics and to at least understand what's really going on. And you, for example, on a U.S. pharmaceutical factor, the U.S. leads in R&D and biotech, but it relies heavily on foreign production for 90 to 95% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients, many generic drugs. The risk, you have concentration risk. So basically, in terms of years, oh, we have plenty of time. Well, in terms of semiconductors, 5 to 7 years before you have a critical loss. For EV component, 3 to 5 years. Yeah, you're on your way down. Steel, 5 to 10 years. So let's be careful. Now, as far as Modi is concerned, so that's what this channel does. We follow all these things for you to make sure that you should know that in India, because the word that we're using is Swadeshi, right? What is Swadeshi? Well, it's part of the India's powerful Hindu nationalist movement, right? The idea that that you, the ideology, imagine India to be an Hindu state. It is deeply suspicious and often hostile to country minority faith. There's a very, very strong following in India, right, to basically buy Indian, because that's what the term means. So, you know, it's not just the administration that wants to make the administration great again. There's a lot of things happening, such as this movement. They have a word, Swadeshi. At least I want you to learn something today. Swadeshi push is an Indian nationalistic economic movement that emphasizes self-reliant local production. So Trump has to be careful to be aware of that, because if you keep pushing Modi, I'm going to give 25%, your company sucks, the oil, yeah, literally accuse Modi of taking the oil from India, from Russia, and reselling it at a higher price. Like, you're a thief, basically. And it reduces dependence on foreign goods and capital. It began as a grassroots resistance movement during the British colonial rule. Eesh. In recent years, Swadeshi has been revived as a policy and a cultural push to promote domestic manufacturing, to protect Indian farmers. And Trump said, why don't you buy more wheat from us? To reduce import dependency, Chinese imports, foreign apps and techs, foreign defense purchases. They're basically saying, we want to make India great again. Hans Dieter says that make America great again and leave the rest of the world alone. How about that? You can't. You can't do that. Not right now, right? You can't just say to Taiwan, go away. We don't need you anymore. Hence, you can't, because right now Taiwan is 60% production in the U.S. Yes, you can. Well, you can. You could do whatever you want, right? The only thing is, what's going to happen if, and this is the idea of closing the borders and getting inside and closing the doors and everything else, which is kind of what Trump was talking about when he was saying, hey, maybe we should take a look at, Canada as a 51st state, Greenland, right? What do you say all this? So, does that make any sense? No, it makes total sense from their point of view. From their point of view, I think what they did, they probably sat around this big wooden table in the White House, and they said, okay, he sat down and said, okay, guys, what's going on? What do I need to do here? He said, Mr. President, I just want to let you know that from a 10,000-mile perspective, 10,000 feet perspective, basically what we have, India, China, and Russia, they are basically going to be working together. They are together. And they may actually leave us behind. You mean they're going to work by themselves? Correct. And that's a problem. They are together and they do not want to work with us anymore. But why? Well, because that's what's going to happen. So that's what's happening right now. And they must have told them, okay, well, then what do you recommend? Say, well, we have to find a way to get in the middle of this somehow. Otherwise, we're going to lose them, because China and India and Russia are way too close together. Okay, what else is going on? Well, what else is going on is we are becoming irrelevant, and never mind, we have a humongous amount of debt. And so what do we do? Well, that's when Pete Navarro, actually, don't underestimate this guy, because Pete Navarro actually went to jail for Trump. Right. And he went to jail. He went to jail for Trump, and he told him, you know what, Mr. President, what we should do? We should use the tariffs as a mean, because everybody wants us right now. Right now, we're 25% of the world GDP, but who knows how long? And we don't have time to negotiate. You don't have time to wait. We need to do something right now. And they basically said, okay, well, then what do I need to do? Well, we need to put some tariffs together. Okay, before we go there, let me do all the things I said I was going to do, which is the immigration. Let me save some money with Doge. Let me do all these things. Immigration was, well, I don't know, 1,000,006 people left. So that was a good thing. It didn't make the unemployment worse. But the Doge thing was a bit of a problem, because he went in there and then And Elon Musk is great. Let's save some money, and he started, and then it went sideways very quickly because there was a lot of abuse and people didn't like what they saw and the way Musk was going around. But I will tell you, a lot of people lost their job in the government because we saw it in the latest numbers. Okay, um, so you using more government jobs are lowering that number. That's what he wanted originally. And then he says, yeah, but this is not going to be enough, right? I mean, immigration. I can't throw 10 million people out of this country. We are like a million, but I don't know, but 10, that's a lot. What else can we do? And the Doge, I mean, you're saving a lot of money, but this is costing a lot at the same time. Well, let's talk about the tariffs. And that was a doozy. You see, but can you actually do this? Can you actually impose tariff on another country? Well, technically, yes. I mean, you have some warp. If it's an emergency, you could do it. And that's what had happened, right? So, and he says, great, so we'll do them, and then they'll invest in this country. That's going to force them to invest in this country until they realize it. But they're not coming. They're not gonna build in this country. Nobody's going to want to do that. So well, then they need to bring money in, or we need to do something. I'm serious. I am very serious, and this is where this whole thing, this contention points is happening. So how long is that going to last? Is Trump going to be successful? Yeah, I mean, make America, kick him out, do this, do that. These are big words. These are simple words, but what are the complicated implication of it? Because right now, what you're doing by pushing Modi, you're getting closer to these people, to Russia and China. And I will tell you, there's a principle of the that says that essentially, ultimately, they are together, they're next to each other. Why can't they form a block? And China knows a lot of technology, tremendous amount of technology. So frankly, maybe it doesn't need the U.S. anymore. Maybe it keeps on going and going and going. And where does it end? Where does it end? Right? That's a question. How much longer can you keep this up? Don't forget to join the channel, by the way. We're going to be talking about lots of interesting topic, and hopefully I could give you quite a bit of knowledge, quite a bit of understanding what's happening, because frankly, it's a complicated world. I mean, the more you look at it, and it will impact us. I will tell you, if the U.S. loses all that control about everything, and you have to be careful what you do because you're pushing India the way you are, you're going to upset them even more, and they're going to, start talking the way they do now, which is not nice. I mean, they're saying that they're very disappointed, right? Like in February, Trump hosted Modi in the Oval Office, embracing him, hailing him as a great friend, right? That was the day when he went there, and he says, "I love you. You're my best friend," right? Lots of hugging. Look at that. They were hugging each other at that time, right? I mean, they need each other. I mean, India needs more, but then 6 months later, relation between the two leaders to the not, India is a democracy, by the way. I want to remind you that India is a democracy, and now it's a little bit more difficult. In a series of combative posts, Trump criticized India trade barriers as strenuous and obnoxious. What are you doing? Place the world's fastest growth large economy alongside. So you're insulting him. He's got to say. He's got to do something. He's got to reply. And this actually startled the Indians. They said, "What's going on? What are you doing?" Trump criticized India trade barriers as strenuous and obnoxious and placed the world fastest. So then they said, well, what are you doing? Well, what he's doing is trying to prevent India from buying oil from Russia. No, that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is preventing them from getting too close from Russia by buying the oil to protect to fight against Russia, right? To get buying the oil from Russia, so Russia attacks Ukraine. I mean, these things are, in a way, they are very simple if you think about it, right? Because that's what's happening. Now, of course, for the public consumption, he will say that the reason he's doing it is because he does not want India to help Russia because he wants Russia to stop fighting in Ukraine. But what's happening really, he's trying to prevent them from being together. B R B is Brazil, but it's really Russia, China, and India. CRI. China, Russia, and India. CRI. And that's what he doesn't want. So how can he prevent that? By getting in the middle, by saying, hey, you need me, right, India? You need me a lot for a lot of things, weapons, right? Otherwise, I'm going to Pakistan, which he actually said that too. That's what he's trying to do. That's what he's really trying to do. But will he succeed? And he has to be careful, because if he pushes too much, you know the term that India is using, which is about the country's way to make India great again, that could be a problem. So that's what he's meant. That's what you need to understand that is happening here. That's what's really happening at this level, and that is a very delicate thing to achieve at this point, because India, needs to do what they need to do, but frankly, they also have, local consideration that they need to partake with. Otherwise, they just can't say, I'm not going to buy the oil from Russia. I'm not going to buy the oil from Russia, really. So don't forget, what is it? What's the number that I told you? I think it's 30%. India is not only buying massive amount of Russia oil, they are then selling it on the open market. That's what Trump said. But Russia supplied India with 1/3 of its crude oil imports, 550 million barrels. Well, we'll buy it from somewhere else. Where? From the U.S.? Going to ship it on a boat? Do you know how long it's going to take? And what kind of discount? Is Russia getting? What is the that India is getting? What is Russia selling oil to India? At what discount? I think they're getting a very good discount. So you want them not to. All right, so they're basically selling $2.25 per barrel. This represents the narrowest discount. Prior month was 2. So it's discounted by discount levels have dropped, which is about $10 to $15 per barrel. That's not bad. Hey, Jew. No, that's not bad. They're getting Russia share of import 30 to 34%. So you want them to do away with that? Do you know what's going to be the impact on what the impact is going to be on India? Right. So now you want them to pay full price. So that's going to be inflationary in India. So you're saying Trump doesn't know that? Of course he knows that. Of course he knows that. But what he wants something else. What does he really want? He wants a 25% that. Because he's not going to get that 25%, because that 25% is going to get passed ultimately down to whomever. So what does he want? He wants India to, mark my words, he wants India to give some money. He wants India, the tariffs will eventually get the end result, say our way in Cumberland. What result is that? Billions lost because of tariffs layoffs. Well, we'll see about that. I think what's going to happen ultimately is that they're going to go out and they're going to, and what do you think Trump is also saying? Oh, we're going to give you some refund, fair trade. Well, the problem is can you have fair trade? What does that mean, fair trade? We had fair trade, but at some point in the U.S., and they decided to, you know what? Why don't we make it easy? Why don't we make it cheaper to build overseas? And it is cheaper, and the company made a lot of money. The problem is once you do it over there, you forget how to make the stuff. That's a very dangerous place to be. You want to know how to make things. So it's it's all convoluted. But for you, what's going to mean very soon is A, you're going to have lower rates. B, you might have some bit of inflation, and you have to be careful you don't get too much. Now, of course, it depends who you listen to, because some of them are going to tell you, "Oh my God, you're going to have a huge amount of inflation. Be careful," and this and that. And at some point, you may not. I agree. We need to make it here, but we need reciprocal. Well, yeah, Rain Cumberland is correct. We need to make it here. The reason you need to make it here, not so much because it's cheap, was because you need to know how to make it. You need to know how to make the stuff, and you need to be informed about the fact that the U.S. right now is becoming irrelevant because in 5 to 7 years, semiconductors, it's gone. EV component, biotech, 10 years, it's gone. Generic, 3 to 5 years. The U.S. relies for 90 to 95% of active pharmaceutical ingredient. Other countries have charged the U.S. with tariff for decades. Over 100 years ago, America was the richest country in the world, all from tariffs, and America did pay taxes. It was Shell, yes. But now, America is becoming irrelevant. And that's why, slowly, not now, not today, but that's the reason why Trump is doing what he's doing. Now, is he gonna be able to keep doing it? Is he gonna have the time to do it? That's gonna be the question. That's gonna be the question. And time is running out. And Trump himself, time is running out, unfortunately. Tariff caused high inflation over 3% year over year, no counting food and energy. Well, you lose 10%. I mean, things are going to become more expensive. Although, right now with GM, we didn't see such a huge decrease. GM, quite frankly, didn't pass on the cost. That's what's surprising. That's what's interesting. Why isn't GM passing the cost? Because it's too expensive. It is too expensive to pass on the cost right now to the brand, right? But now that they know, they're going to start slowly. They have to do it. There was a very interesting article that I wanted to talk to you about about Trump is also going after the pharmaceutical, but that's going to be for another day. But 200% tariffs on pharma, believe it or not. But the car companies are kind of starting to feel it a little bit. They're feeling it because, they're the first one to take it, right? For example, there's a lot of things happening, but we'll talk about this. Like, for example, the chief, auto sector chief in Mexico, basically saying that the Trump tariffs are not sustainable. And U.S. car making are ultimately losing out too. So basically, it announced, Mexico, thank God, got a 90-day tariff-free for 90 days for now. Okay, but finished autos will still incur a 25% tariff under separate agreement measures put in place by Trump. That arrangement was paralyzing investment decision. The industry is pushing for separate bridge ahead of USMCA review, the U.S. Mexico-Canada agreement. This is not sustainable. It is not sustainable for the American company. It could be disastrous by be this way from now until next year. Because in March, Trump imposed 25% tariffs on automotives coming from Mexico. It has been reduced by 15%, right? But still, um, it has been reduced 50% in Japan and Europe, but Mexico, no. Okay, so Mexico auto exporters that comply can claim a discount, which is higher than the other nation, but still, it means that Mexico made cars pay an average of about 15% in total, the same level as in Japan. In reality, just 2 or 3 models made in Mexico had qualified for the discount so far. Everyone is still paying 25%. So you slap a 25% on goods for the mass majority. The auto sector are separately and would require their own deal to change the terms. So it's this whole thing is very, very sticky for the auto manufacturers. How long are they going to be able to sustain? That's going to be a problem. Because frankly, there's just too much of it. And the way Trump is using the tariffs, for example, Bolsonaro, right? He was the previous Brazil president. And now Supreme Court orders house arrest for the previous president. And Trump is upset about that, and he's charging Brazil 50%. And they say, but you can't do that. You can't use a tariff in that way. And of course, the idea is when they sat down with Trump, they said, okay, we're going to use the tariffs to bolster the economy, collect some money, but really, we need the money to come in. So Trump basically said, well, where's the money? Where are the factories? They don't want to do that. Otherwise, they would have done it already. So what they're doing, they quote unquote giving you money. But they're not giving you any money. Europe is not really sending that much money yet, and they're questioning everything. And it's not the $750 billion is too much. They're not going to be able to do 750 billion. Now, lately, the Swiss president is coming back, is trying to propose a more attractive tariff offer to the White House. Okay, because Switzerland, for example, is being charged 39%. Why? What did Switzerland do to you? Well, Switzerland has a big pharmaceutical aspect. The rate is higher than the 31% announced in April. Okay, so they're negotiating, but by negotiating, I'm telling you that they're going to want to get some money from her. They have held multiple rounds of talk with Trump trade representative, but nothing. And last week signaled that the U.S. $39 billion trade deficit with Switzerland was a key reason for the high levy. But that is not an emergency. You can't use that. However, many business groups have pointed out that this turned to a surplus in April and May of this year. So the trade lobby group have branded the tariff arbitrary and warned of threats to tens of thousands of jobs in watchmaking, machinery, chemical. It's a huge impact on the Swiss industry. So what is Trump going to get out of this? So they want to go back and talk. And I'm telling you, and this is what's going to happen with Modi, he is going to want to get some money from them all, because that's the only way you're going to keep going. Trump has obviously made it very personal thing with Modi. I don't think it's much to do with policy anymore. Yeah, but Trump is not that naive that he thinks that Modi somehow is going to just, that's it. What else do we have? The free ride is over. Tell us how much you paid to American Socials. You know what? I'm going to do also. I'm going to do a video also on that, because on the Social Security in the U.S. Because I don't know, a couple of years from now, there's not enough money on Social Security. which is amazing to me. But that's what's going to happen. There's not going to be enough money for Social Security. As of today, I'm getting 1,500 every 2 weeks. Is that how it's paid? Every 2 weeks? That's not bad, 1,543 CAG. But unfortunately, there's not enough money only for the next 9 years. So I'm assuming, I'm going to assume, oh, pause my Social Security check? CAG, what are you talking about? Anyone from India, by the way? Let's talk a little bit to the people. The American auto industry needs to come back where they are. I see the scans. So our industry went to other countries that don't have regulations. Yes, that's what happened. The American auto industry needs to come back to America where they belong. America put too many regulations on our industry, so our industry went. For the affluent, thanks, Maga. Well, that's true too. Well, Rochelle has a good point that the American auto industry needs to come back to America where they belong. Yes, that's true. The only thing is, American worker gets paid more money. So I think what Trump is doing, he's saying, you know what, don't build a plant, but invest here in this country. Then it's faster and quicker. You'll see, he'll get that from Modi and from these other. It's going to be the America way of it, or would not be at all. Don't demand, just leave. Well, I don't know. There's no reason to leave. I mean, the U.S. is still a great country with lots of opportunities and laws and things like that. To the moon, CEG. CEG is very active. The American auto industry needs to come back. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the auto industry, because it's expensive. Expensive to build a car, and I don't know how much money can you get paid. That's the question. What else is going on here? Stop struggling now. We will need about. Tariffs are a great thing for America. Well, higher prices according to Yen. Yes, it's going to. You can't tell us what to do with our taxes. Hopefully not. That shouldn't happen. So lots of interesting comment there. Let me tell you what else is interesting. That, for example, I was telling you about Taiwan and the chips and the fact that we're losing ground. The former TSC staff is arrested for allegedly theft of chip makers' technology. Okay, for national security reasons. Things are tightening over in Taiwan. 2 former employees of Taiwan Semiconductors have been arrested for allegedly stealing property from the world's biggest chip makers. Investigators are searching the premise of Japanese chip maker in Taiwan. The probe marked the first trade secret case under Taiwan's national security law since the legislature added provisions. I think things are heating up over in Taiwan. We will continue to strengthen our internal management. Obviously, this is zero tolerance, la la la. But I think what's happening is they might be pressuring everything because they want to make sure that they don't lose, because they think that they may lose control of Taiwan at some point. But don't forget what Trump said about Taiwan recently, right? Taiwan, and this is, maybe Trump is having a discussion with all 3 of these guys. So listen, it's us, we have U.S., Brazil, and Russia together, and that's it. We don't need anyone else. Once dominant falls out of step, recently, believe it or not, U.S. has canceled military talks with Taiwan. The U.S. canceled a meeting with Taiwan defense minister in June, the deepening concern that Taipei and Donald Trump is way of supporting the countries in ways that could anger China. I mean, Trump is trying to negotiate and do something somehow to keep them away from each other. Some U.S. officials worry that allowing the Taiwanese defense minister a visit would undermine U.S.-China trade negotiation and damage Trump's effort to secure a summit with the President Xi. The U.S. and Taiwan are discussing new dates for a meeting. So we have to think about that. And that could be a larger issue. What else are we talking about? Stop shrugging now. 41 trillion. What do you mean? Yeah, we have 37 trillion. That's a lot. What I would recommend at this point, what we're going to do, let me tell you a little bit what we are going to do over the next couple of days. I have lots of topics. I want to talk about BLS this afternoon, definitely. Give you a feel of what's happening there, because there's definitely something going on. Also, what we're going to talk about is over the next couple of days. And don't forget, free subscription to my Patreon channel there in the links. Let me give you another chance to subscribe. I don't know if it's full or not, but we shall see right now. Grab it. So what we're going to be talking about is I got 5 or 6 of those things. First, I want to talk about Social Security. We're going to run out of money by 2033, believe it or not. Big Pharma, what's going on? AI, stagflation, BLS. What happened with BLS, really? There are a lot of issues in there. What's going on with the Swiss? That should be fun to talk about. Okay? So, my friends, thank you very much. And we shall see you very, very soon.